I recently started making videos talking about concepts, like theoretical videos, and I really thought they were gonna flop and you were gonna hate it. But you guys have been loving them, which I appreciate so much. Sometimes I come up with a concept and I can't actually make a full tutorial because I haven't figured out everything, or it's just too complex, or it goes in a place where I basically need help, your help. So it really warms my heart to know that you guys can appreciate a video even though it's not just a step-by-step tutorial to a full thing. This video is no different. One of my videos talks about 3D overlays, where I showcase that you can use a 3D software to make an overlay, and then even though the perspective is not 2D, you can match your sources to it. And one of the comments said something that I have been thinking about. And that thing is, what if I want to animate it? If you want to animate something where the camera is moving or maybe some objects are moving, then your 2D OBS sources can't follow them, right? It's impossible to move 2D sources in 3D space in OBS. Or is it? Visa song. So I would like to explore this. If you're a fan of making advanced stuff in OBS Studio, I think there's gonna be at least a little something that you enjoy in this video. If you're not a fan of making cool stuff in OBS, you can just use today's sponsor. I've been yapping about Owned Pro for a while now. Their goal is to give you everything you need to start as a streamer, starting with a huge library of overlays, a chatbot, widgets, everything you can think of. But now they got something new, a stream overlay maker. On the left, under stream design, you will see Scene Builder. You can choose a complete setup or just a single scene. Let's do complete. Automatic selection will create 5 different scenes for your stream, and in less than a minute you will have a full professional scene setup. In manual selection, you can browse the library and pick the scenes that you want. Let's go with automatic, and the choice here is kinda wild. Owned is known for having the biggest library of overlays on the internet, so let's pick this one. You get a preview of what it looks like. You can see your scenes, your alerts, your camera overlays, your starting soon screens, your stinger transitions, and just click create scenes. Congrats, you have 5 scenes already created for you. Let's quickly edit the text by clicking on it, and this is the scene builder with a lot of options. This text seems to be in that folder, and now I can type whatever I want. Nice. Now click save and copy the overlay URL. In your broadcasting software, you want to add a browser source, paste the link that you just copied, and adjust the size. We know it's 1920 by 1080, and click OK. Congrats, it was that easy to create your starting soon screen. Do the same with the rest of the scenes, and your complete setup can be done in 10 minutes max. Owned Pro offers a gazillion more options, but I'll let you check it out by going to own.gg/GaLevelPro. That is own3d.gg/GaLevelPro. So in the other video, we talked about how you can create overlays in a 3D software, export them as 2D images, bring them into OBS, and basically set your sources to match those 3D overlays, even with the perspective and everything. And we did that using the shader filter plugin with the corner pin shader. Of course, you can do that with any plugin that will allow you to stretch your sources to basically match. And then that's what it was, right? It's 2D, it's pretending to be there in 3D space, but it's not really there. How can you move stuff in OBS so that it actually looks 3D? Well, since OBS is a 2D software and there's no like Z space, you can only fake it. So we're gonna start by trying to fake some movement. That being said, I need you to remember that I have tutorials on Polypop. Polypop is a 3D OBS, basically. There's no other way to say it. It's a streaming software that is its own thing that you can also use in conjunction with OBS, which is what I do when I stream, that actually has a Z space, that actually has 3D objects that can bounce around, that can interact with each other, with collision, gravity, emissions, like a lot of things. So the real simple solution is just use Polypop, lol. But of course, if you're still passionate about OBS, we're gonna take a look at how we would go about it. So there are certain things that I learned recently and I haven't tried them. So let's create a new scene, and I'm gonna create a color source. Call it backpack. I have so many sources on this that I just know that most basic names like background are already taken. Let's pick a color. Is that even visible to you? Like that, not too dark. Let's create another color source, and let's call this one frame. Let's make it 500 by 500. Pick a cool color. Let's go with that purple. Let's click OK. All right, we're gonna pretend that we're making like a full overlay inside of OBS. And this is basically the frame of some of the elements that we want. Maybe it's gonna be your labels bar. Maybe it's gonna be a logo. It's gonna be something that carries another piece of information. Of course, you can keep it sharp, but you know, just to really make it, graphic design, we're gonna round the corners basically. I'm gonna use the shader filter. I'm gonna use the shader filter plugin to find one of the shaders that can round my rectangles. So let's go to R. There's rounded rectangle per corner, rounded rectangle per side. Let's try the first one. There you go, corner radius, and I'm happy with that. We can press Ctrl D to center it. And you know what? Just to make it more realistic, let's add some text so you can see a potential use case. Call it example data, and we're gonna be like follow goal. I'm gonna select font, Montserrat bold, text transform, uppercase, alignment, center, gradient, why not? It doesn't matter. All right, now you can also Ctrl D. I'm just gonna lower this. Nice, add another text. Number. All right, I'm just helping you visualize like an actual element that you would have on your stream somewhere. I'm gonna put all of that inside a group. Select everything, group selected items, and the group is asset 1. Collapse, beep, boop, nice. Now here's the thing. I'm gonna duplicate the color source. So frame, right click, copy, right click, paste, duplicate. I'm gonna select the color. We're gonna go with black, or actually we can go with just a desaturated version of this. Doesn't really matter. And I'm gonna bring this all the way to the bottom on top of the background, of course, and I'm gonna Control D. So right now I have this exactly where I want it to be. There are 2 things that we need to do before we start moving things around is Control E, and I'm doing that on that second color source, which is gonna be our shadow. I should have named it. And click positional alignment, go center. We're centering, we're using the anchor point from the middle. So if I scale it or something with the move plugin, is gonna scale from the middle, all right? Not from the corner left. We need to do the same thing with the group. I can press Control E, positional alignment, center. Doesn't matter if it's moving it like that, doesn't matter. Click, Control D to center, remember that. Frame 2, Control D. We're gonna rename frame 2 to shadow because hey, we're doing 3D stuff. One of the best ways to show perspective is by playing around with highlights and shadows. Now, talking about shadows, well, this is selected. I'm gonna move this around and I'm basically gonna pick the direction of the light. Shadows happen because light is hitting our object from a certain side. Maybe the light is up top, front of the camera, and the shadow is slowly like that. Cool. Now in real life, the closer the object is to the surface, the more opaque the shadow is going to be, but also the sharper the shadow is going to be, unless you have bounce light from a certain surface. Anyways, we're not gonna go there. So what I can do is I can right click on the shadow and find some sort of blur. We already used the shader filter. I should probably rename this filter rounded. And we're gonna add another one, user defined shader. Load shader text from file, click browse, and we're gonna go find one of the blurs. Box blur is gonna be just fine. Cool. Problem here, we're gonna have some problems with, the boundaries. You need to put that on the rounded. So this is where you expand the boundaries and then you can blur it. There you go. So extra 50 pixels all around on the rounded shader, and then on the blur, which I'm gonna name blur, you can keep it to 0. There you go. Now you have a fully super soft. Now, if you're getting like soft light, maybe that's what would happen. But anyways, you can play around with the strength for harsher light. Let's not go into too much details. I'm also gonna go ahead and add a color correction filter just because there's opacity in it, right? Opacity is a pretty cool thing. And if this object were to move away from the surface, it would be a little less opaque, just a little less, right? Maybe 0.3 to 0.9 or just 100%. And I know what you're wondering, how am I gonna move the values of this? Like, yeah, manually I can do this, but stick around. Let's actually do the movement up in here. And for this, I need to right click on this scene and using the move filter. So you need to install and use the move filter. I'm gonna go to move source on my scene. And this will be box init for this box initial position. We're gonna select the source, which is asset 1. We're gonna click get transform. So now it recorded the initial position. We can duplicate it. We can call this box move. And now I can move this box. Oops, that's not the box. I can select my asset group. I can move it up, scale it up, because if it was moving towards the camera a little bit, it would appear bigger, right? Depending on the lens and blah, blah, blah. We're not doing, this is not exact science. It could be if you want to, but it doesn't have to. And now box moves, I can click get transform. It saves the scale and also the position. Now, one thing that's important, I want this to be super slow. So I'm gonna put 3000 milliseconds for custom duration and also 3000 milliseconds. Nice. Now, if my object moves, gets closer to the light or whatever, gets closer to the camera, of course, my shadow is going to move, probably the opposite direction of where the light is coming from. So let's add move source. And this is going to be shadow initial position, shadow init, go shadow, make it 3000 milliseconds and click get transform. Now duplicate this and this is going to be shadow move. We're going to select the shadow And we're going to move it where we think that the shadow would be and which size it would be if this was to move like that. Of course, it depends on the light source. If it's coming from the sun, the shadows are going to be parallel unless you're using a light that has a Fresnel lens. You can get really scientific with this, but you don't have to. You know, we're creating an illusion. We're doing fake 3D in a broadcasting software, which is already so cool. There you go. And with shadow move selected, we want to click Get Transform. I hope I didn't mess anything up. Should be good. Shadow, asset, asset, asset. Okay. So now if I click box initial, okay. Shadow initial, okay. We just need them to move at the same time. Box move, I would like, scrolling down, the simultaneous move to be shadow move. All right. Box initial, I would like the simultaneous move to be shadow initial. All right. If I really wanted, I could probably loop all of that, but yeah, we can do that later. All good. Click box move. And we have a little sense of depth, right? Box initial. There's a tiny little bit of depth. Imagine if you do this, like you get an alert and whatever you have on screen that is relevant can move towards the screen with the shadow trailing behind it. All right. Now here's the thing that I never talk about because I just figured it out recently is you can move the values of certain filters. So our shadow right now, let me turn that off. Our shadow right now has a blur on it and a color correction where I want to move the opacity a little bit. How would I go about doing that? Actually, the Move plugin comes with something called Move Value, and that's what it does. So I can have Move Value Opacity, and I can have Move Value Blur. So for Move Value Opacity, I can go to Filter and pick the filter that I want to change. From Move Value Type, I can select if there's one single setting within that filter that I want to change, or if there's multiple, if there's random, and stuff like, I don't know what add in typing means, but we don't need that. Under settings, I can pick opacity. As you can see, I get the value of the opacity. So current opacity is this, or I can move it around, click get value, just like I would click get transform on the move tool. Okay, so I can record a position on that value. Now, remember we wanted 0.3. I can duplicate this because of course I need a second one. And this one will be 0.9. Well, that's the big one. Now, if I click, it should go to 0.3. And if I click here, it gets to 0.9. I'm clicking on the wrong thing. This is 0.3. This is 0.9. This is 0.3. This is 0.9. And of course, just like the move source, you can add like the delay. You can make it go super slow or super fast. I can put this 3 seconds. Again, I'm selecting the wrong one. What is wrong with me? 3 seconds for the custom duration on each. Now you're going to have a very, very slow transition. Now, the roadblock is, when do I trigger this? How do I trigger it at the same time? If you're using something like StreamerBot or a keyboard shortcut to do that, well, if we're talking about alerts, for example, of course, you would use something like StreamerBot connected to your Twitch, which means that you can tell StreamerBot to play those two things, those two different filters, which is the filters on the shadow plus the filters on the scene to move, and then the filters on the shadow to play around with the opacity and also the blur. Because yes, the blur is also something that you can change. I can go here, click on blur. So the filter on move value blur, single setting, and I can say strength. Cool. Strength value is 2. I can duplicate it. And then I can set, I can go back to basically figure out how the strength works. I would never want it at 14, for example, but I can set it to 7, or I can just manually set it to 7, just like I did right now, and go back to move value blur 2 and click get value. And it says 7. So now I have a very, very slow movement of my blur. All right, for some reason, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but it refuses to go back to blur value 7. Oh, there we go. I had to do it again. So of course, for certain settings, you can see that this wasn't smooth because the actual blur is gradual. The strength here is for increments of 1. So it's jumping within the time. If you do it fast, it will be seamless, but yeah, 3000 milliseconds is not something that it likes. I can always go back. Boom. So let's set it up in a way that we can trigger it manually. I don't want to deal with StreamerBot right now. So when I press a button, I want this to move. Should this be bigger? Let me make it bigger. So now when it moves, Yeah, for some reason that looks better, kind of. So we can scroll down until we find how to start the trigger. So start trigger here under actions, maybe source show. All right, I'm gonna have to play with this to figure it out. Be right back. Active. I'm gonna rename the filters on the shadow and I'm gonna link them by using simultaneous move. So opacity init should be blur init at the same time. Then opacity move should have blur move at the same time. Hopefully the blur works this time. So opacity init and then opacity move and blur move. Let's reset. Oh my God, it works. Yo, I don't know why I wasn't expecting it to work, but okay. Opacity move might be a little too much. Let's go 0.5. And then let's set opacity move to basically when it's visible, we're gonna figure out which one of the start triggers does that. Activate. So it's triggers when you click back on the scene or when you turn on the scene, I believe. So if I click away and then I click scene 2, I already set that up for the move tool. Boom. Yeah. Yeah. It's not, I know it doesn't look amazing, but it's working. Technically, it's working. We are making 3D type of movement in OBS Studio. And if you have a good grasp on how things would move in 3D and how light would affect your elements, you can really fool people. You can probably add a gradient that adds light on that background, on that frame. But now let me make it just reset on its own with next move basically, and then end delay for it to wait until it does it. So filters, after you've done box move and shadow move, I want your next move to be box initial. And of course, box initial, your simultaneous move is shadow initial. Cool. One thing though, I want shadow move to wait 2 seconds, and that is under, where's end delay? There you go. Wait 2 seconds before you basically end, and then you go to the next move. Cool. We just need to do the same thing for the shadow filters. Now, hopefully people who create filters who are watching this, maybe that will give you an idea. Maybe we could make this simpler. Maybe we could create a shadow that actually moves around in 3D space-ish so that, you know, you don't need to know all of this about OBS to make it happen. I'm sure there's a way to have a plugin make this happen. It's basically a glorified drop shadow filter. So opacity move makes blur move, okay? But then after blur move, I want opacity initial, but I do want blur move to wait 2 seconds. All right, just to make sure everything is working, we're gonna bring it back to initial position. We also need to bring back the shadow to its initial position. There we go. Click on another scene, and this is where it's supposed to do its own thing. So move and then reinitialize. I can't say I'm totally satisfied, but that's the concept. That's the concept. That's what I'm trying to show. That's what I'm trying to showcase. And we can see all the difficulties. We can see where it has, flaws. And if you guys have any ideas on maybe how to make it happen, maybe that gives you an idea to at least implement the move value filter, for example, in your day-to-day streams and stuff. But that's all it is. I feel almost ashamed that this whole video is just to show you, this simple animation, but this is OBS Studio. This is OBS Studio. We are creating some sort of 3D effect in OBS Studio. It's just, how do you trigger it? If you're using StreamerBot, probably super easy. Just trigger them at the same time. Tell StreamerBot, hey, turn on this filter, turn on that filter from this other thing at the same time, and boom, you have this animation. If you're not using StreamerBot, then making it so that just when it shows, it appears like that, it does the same thing. So now they are in sync. We kind of solved the sync problem. What that also means is that if I were to duplicate this, hopefully, don't break, please don't break, please don't break. Copy, paste duplicate. I have something called asset 2, bring it here. We're gonna duplicate the shadow also. All right, I'm gonna set it aside, kind of pretending that the light source is kind of small. So since it's from top middle, then the shadow would be the opposite place. You can probably set it so that we get lens blur, so that we get a rack focus effect on other elements. So if I add a filter to this group and it's a blur filter, of course, the closer you can get to an actual lens blur, the more realistic, but this is definitely not what we're working with here. I don't think I need to put all of that, but basically I'm gonna make it so that when our asset 1 comes close to the camera, this gets out of focus, as in the camera is follow focusing on that first asset. And I do this with the move value basically. I'm just gonna make it move faster. Next, move to blur initial. So now the end delay is gonna be different since we're moving them faster. So how much time does it wait? If it accomplishes it in 1500 milliseconds, well, it's basically 3000 milliseconds plus the extra 1500, right? Since the delay is 2000 on the other ones, I believe, then 3500. And of course, the start trigger is going to be activate. Hopefully this didn't break the move source filter. So let's try it out. I don't think this is gonna work, but let's try it. Can play around with the delay a little bit more, give it an extra 500 millisecond. Let's try it out again. So, my name is Get Level. Everything you're seeing here has been made in OBS Studio itself. The goal is to fake 3D moves by basically using the move tool, scaling, positioning, and also the use of shadow, blurring, and opacity. Right now, we're testing a follow focus. It's not perfect. It is not perfect by any means, but the idea of being able to do this in OBS is kind of wild. It's kind of wild. I know the example that I showed was very simple. It didn't look that great. So those are the overlays that I made. Well, this is the overlay that I made on my last video. And of course, the comment originally was, hey, if I were to animate this, I wouldn't be able to. I want you to imagine, because I really don't have time to actually simulate this, but this part, which is for chat, was moving that way, right? In 3D space with actual parallax, depending on the lens size, right? But you want chat to follow it. Everything that I just showed you in OBS is what you would use to make that happen. You would use the corner pin shader filter to make it fit in 3D in the first place. And then you would just have to match the movement. Well, just match the movement, lol. It's not gonna be easy, but you would have to match the movement of whatever your video file is doing in 3D, and using the move tool and the move value. If there's any stretching that happens into the perspective, you can adjust the values. So if you have a looping thing, maybe if I showed you in Blender, maybe that would be more understandable. So if you have your asset, well, we can keep it a cube. You have your asset like this, and let's say that it's on the side. It's funny because you can study what the shadow would do depending on where the light is. But basically, this is the animation that we simulated. This. So let's say this was a chat box. Probably look something like this. And it would probably be on the right side, like that, right? Now, if I want to move it like towards the camera, or at least in Z space, there might be some sort of deform happening. Depending on what camera you're using, let's go with 18 millimeters. You can see how much it's being deformed already, and you would want your OBS source to follow it. Let's say it goes from this position to that position, this position, that position. Rotate it a little bit. There we go. You might have a better skew here. The further away it's going to be, the more flat the corners are going to be, and the closer, but also to the side, the more slanted it's going to be. So in OBS, with your filter, you would just have a shader filter, of course, corner pin. No, not this one, this corner pin. And then you'll need to use the move value filter to basically modify this. Thankfully, there's settings where you can pick exactly the filter you want. And now you have access to all of that. If I click get values, it knows where I'm at right now. I can duplicate it. And I know that if I bring this down and I bring this up, then that's my initial values. See that? So as usual, the only problem you're gonna run into is how to trigger it in sync. In that case, since your render would be a video file, you could just make the active stuff. You can just make the active stuff. Your video goes in a loop. You just make it so that every time that scene becomes active, which is when your video would be active, you want the video to also basically restart every time you put up the scene. And then that's it. I warned you this was a theory, a concept video. If I get it down to a science, I will actually make a tutorial showing how to do it. Considering my type of videos, I need to find an easy way to make it happen. But yeah, next time I make a video like that, I will have a full overlay. We'll probably give it away for free just so that you can try it. Or maybe just like an asset, just a little part of your overlay that you can do this with. But that's the concept that I had in my head and I needed to share, and I needed to hear from you guys and your ideas and everything. And of course, I wanted to prove that, hey, it is possible to have 3D moving overlays and be able to have moving sources in OBS that look like they're moving in 3D space. If you're new here, you should probably subscribe because I will definitely have a functioning example at some point. I just wanted to show both the 2D part on its own using just OBS Studio to create 3D stuff, and also show the concept of what if I already have my 3D moving stuff and I want something to... But look at this though. Like, do you see this? Imagine the rack focus on multiple things. Actually, you know what? Forget that. Don't imagine anything. Let me make it happen. Oh no, OBS is crashing. There's no way. There's no way. It kept moving to the left. I don't know why. I don't want to ruin my recording though. It's been 56 minutes. Bro, I just wanted to control Z. All right, I'm gonna click once. Yeah, that's my cue. That's my cue. I've been yabbing too much. Too much yapping. Again, I'm sorry that the visuals were super simple, but I just wanted to show you like the thought behind everything that this could unlock for you. The move value plus the move source plus the shader filter plugin can do so much. You can generate so much, you can create so much, and you can have like, there are stuff in the move plugin that I haven't even started exploring yet. You can move stuff from one spot to the other, right? Now that we know that you can move value, you can also add increments to certain values. You can be like +10. At the height of overworking and overcomplicating everything, you could make a functioning video game with OBS. You could do a platformer with OBS. Absolutely. Well, collisions is going to be a problem and all that, but you can have a little thing on screen that is animated, that's jumping if chat types a command, that's going left and right and things like that. It doesn't have to be, we're not going to start thinking about hitboxes and death animations or whatever, but like on the simple level, you can make that happen. That is a possibility. Anyways, I hope you guys see the vision. I didn't mean to make a long video, but here we are. Follow me on Twitch. We can talk about it some more and you can see some of my projects like in action, and I will see you later. Go out there, make me proud, get level, out.